Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am going to start off by chatting with you in the chat bar in the side there. If you can just type in hi, hello, that way we know that the chat bar is working and that you can hear me. That would be awesome. Okay, amazing. Good, good. Oh, lots of familiar names and faces in there. Amazing. Hi, everyone. Okay, just wait for everyone to respond in there. Okay, as you are saying hi, what I'd love for you to do is make sure you have pen and paper. We are going to be sending a replay out of this, and I'll tell you a little bit closer to the end. There's going to be something that I'm including for you in the replay as well. That's going to be a printable that you're going to take with you. And hi, everyone. Hi, hi, hi. So I'm excited about this tonight. Obviously, I'm always excited when I teach. If you have never been to any of my master classes or my workshops before, my name is Jenn Pike. I'm a functional medicine diagnostic nutritionist as well as a medical exercise specialist. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I feel like I'll be doing this for a long time. I love what I do. I love the opportunity to teach, and I love the opportunity to learn. And so I am here teaching you tonight, but I am an eternal student when it comes to not only women's health and women's hormones, but honestly, the human body as a whole. There's a lot I'm going to teach you tonight that you are going to take through the lens of who you are and in your body as a woman, but you are also going to think about how that impacts your kids, whether you have a daughter or you have a son, how it might impact your spouse. I really want you tonight to be able to sink into this and think first through the lens of how this is going to help you and the way that this is going to support you. So what I would love to know before we get into the top 5 things that I think that every woman that is in perimenopause, and you might be in here being like, I'm actually here because I don't even know if I'm in perimenopause. I'm not really too sure what's going on. I think by the end of this, you will know whether or not you are showing symptoms of perimenopause, to those of you that are in the thick of menopause and then post-menopause. So what I would love to know is what brought you here tonight? What brought you here tonight? If you can, a couple of you can just drop that into the chat. Let's give you a couple minutes as I hydrate. Education. Love learning about hormones. Okay. To learn. Okay. You're my people. Your knowledge. You're my people. You're my people. I love to teach. I could create a whole school that is just for young girls and women, and every day all you would learn about is your body. Bloating, sleep issues, weight gain, always exhausted, belly fat that will not go away, trying to put a name to my symptoms. Thank you for sharing that one. Education, good, good, good. Seeing if you can learn something new. Hopefully, rage. It's a good one. That is a good one. We'll see. Hopefully we can help that. Education for yourself and for your patients. Okay, love this as well too. I do. I tend to attract a lot of practitioners as well. And I always say to people, what I do is not different than what a lot of people do, but how I do what I do is what is different. The belly fat, joint pain, to learn what might be happening with your body and your mind, to learn some tools, not just the social media noise that we're in right now. Yeah. And it is, I mean, how fortunate are we that we all, have the budget that we can own one of these devices, and that we have the accessibility to have unlimited resources, podcast, audiobooks, Instagram, TikTok, wherever it is that you're hanging out, email newsletters to get all this information. But also it's so much. Like, how do you figure out the things that you could or should be doing for your own body when there is so much noise that is happening and that is going on? And so the 5 things, I mean, there's 6 because my name is Jenn Pike and there's always a bonus thing that I want to talk about that we're going to go through tonight, I feel are what a lot of us may be kind of skipping over, not realizing really matter the most, especially right now where we're so hyper focused on quick fixes, biohacking, own this, do this. Like, it's just that those things can be great, but you have to first understand in your own body, what is it that you are missing? What is it that you need before we start to go and spend, a whole bunch of money on things and stuff when we already probably have enough things and stuff. Learning for yourself, your sisters and your daughter. I love that. Becoming an advocate for myself. You're going to walk away from here hopefully feeling like you are, when we say things like becoming the CEO of your own health, what that actually means to me is you are prepared when you go into a doctor's appointment. You are prepared when you have to go and speak up for yourself. You are prepared when you are requesting something. You are prepared when you have a moment to be able to describe how it is that you feel. You are prepared when you are met by the answer no. You are prepared when you are met by frustration. And so, you're not always going to get what you want when you go and work with your doctor. And I'm not just talking like Western medicine family doctor or your OBG or your endocrinologist or whoever it is you're working with in that lens. You might be frustrated working with your nurse practitioner, with your naturopath, with your functional medicine practitioner. Part of the frustration I find for a lot of women is that when you do not allow yourself to learn and understand about your own body, when you're not starting to build up your knowledge as your number one tool, part of that frustration is actually just confusion. And we're frustrated because we don't understand. And then we're trying to go to someone to help us understand. And we feel like we're constantly hitting this roadblock. Or we go and ask for the thing that everyone online is saying, demand this from your doctor. If you don't get it from that doctor, go to another one. And so many people will say, I've spent so much money and so much time going from, person to person, hoping for someone else to tell me a different answer. Sometimes the frustration in that is that you are waiting for someone to give you a diagnosis when there's not a diagnosis to be made. There is actually symptoms and struggles to understand. And this can be the hard thing too, is that if we're always looking for a label to attach to the summary, right, to summarize the way that we are feeling, and we walk out not understanding that it's a bigger picture than simply just being told you're in perimenopause. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean for you and your body? So we're going to go into that tonight. Feel like you're going crazy in your head with all the signs of perimenopause that your doctor says I'm fine. All the results are normal, so troubling. And here's the thing, is very rarely, like we've never worked with a woman inside of our programs, inside of our clinic, who describes the way she is feeling, which sounds nothing like normal. And then we look at her blood labs and we go, yeah, everything is actually totally normal. There's a scope of normal. We will include for you in the replay as well. I have it's like over an hour long blood work guide and video that helps you go through the labs to ask. We give you the printout of what you could be asking your practitioner for, and then what the results could mean and how to dive a little deeper into that. Okay, amazing. Awesome. All the info is overwhelming. I want to say this to all of you, even working in this industry and continuing to learn as much as I do. It is overwhelming. It is overwhelming even as practitioners, because it's not that there is always new information that is coming out. It is that no two bodies respond the same. No two bodies respond the same. So even when we're trying to categorize, like we could take all of you. We had over 1,000 women that registered for this, okay? We could take that group of 1,000 women and we could go, okay, so you are all in early perimenopause. You are in the thick of perimenopause. You're in later stage. You're in menopause and you're post-menopause. And just because you fall into that category does not mean that you are going to feel the same. It doesn't mean that the recommendations are going to land the same in your body. It doesn't mean that hormone replacement therapy is going to have the same response in your body. All of those things. So again, what you have to be able to do is to pull it back in and go, where does that land in my body? Am I going through that right now? Have I felt that before? Is there a level of resonance there? The other thing I'm going to encourage you, and I'll probably say this multiple times tonight, is you need to be more patient than what you have been. And sometimes that is not what we want to hear at all, because we have been feeling a certain way for a period of time. And we want to just like, how do I get through it and how I get through it the fastest? And I totally understand that. But we got to understand what's going on first before we can actually start to put some, top level down things into place. So here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to jam for about 75 minutes. I am going to encourage you to turn off your phone and to fully pay attention and like be here with me. If you were with me live and in person, I would hope you wouldn't be looking at your phone and multitasking and being a whole bunch of other places mentally and emotionally. So I'm going to ask that you actually really show up and you give yourself the gift of truly being present. So the 5 things I wish that more women knew at this stage and phase of life, because you wouldn't be here if your body wasn't speaking to you, and it really is time to listen. I want you to understand that when we are thinking about how we get to really represent for ourselves and stand up for ourselves, this is an embodiment of taking care of yourself. This isn't just about like, I'm getting fierce and I'm going to get what I want when it comes to my health and my body. It means that you actually take care of yourself in a way where you believe when your body is speaking to you. You do not keep outsourcing all of the solutions, because I promise you, you probably hold more of them in your body than what you realize. And understanding perimenopause and menopause is not just about hot flashes and gaining weight and not sleeping. It's not just about your period ending and all of a sudden now you celebrate graduating into menopause. It's not saying to ourselves, I'm just stressed. This is what stress does. Oh, I guess this is what happens when I'm in my 40s. Oh, I guess this is what happens when I'm in my 50s. Well, now I'm in my 60s, and doing that thing where we also contribute to the gaslighting of our own signs and symptoms. It's also understanding that what is going to show up in terms of your symptoms in perimenopause and menopause and post, it's oftentimes the culmination. It is like the tipping point of so many things your body has been able to micromanage behind the scenes when you were in your, when you were younger, or you were even in your teens, your 20s and your 30s, maybe even your early 40s, and your bandwidth was a whole lot bigger and your body was able to manage it. And now, as you've had your hormone shifting, which we'll talk about, as things in your life have changed, your family has changed, your work has changed, the environment has changed, you have all of these different changes that are now applying more pressure to a body that has already been under stress and potentially more vulnerable for a period of time. It's only a matter of time. It's never if something is going to change in our bodies, ladies. It's a matter of when, and how well prepared are we for when those changes happen, and are you paying attention to the ones that matter most? So tonight we're going to flip the script. We're not going to be a passenger on the hormonal roller coaster. We're going to step into this energy of feeling very confident and a whole lot more knowledgeable about what's going on to our bodies, because I'm not here for perpetuating the message that it sucks to be a woman. It sucks to have a period. Our period is the worst thing we've ever had to deal with. And I also want to say, I understand that if you have had crippling and debilitating periods that feel like they have taken a hold of your body physically, they have contributed to, as one of you said, rage and mood swings and all of these different symptoms going on. I'm not going to belittle the importance of the role that our periods are playing in our lives, but I want you to also know that that is not the be all and end all of the change that happens when you go into menopause. In fact, most women will notice the changes in their period secondary to all of the other signs and symptoms that they are struggling with and that they are going through. And so we don't want to be hyper focused on, well, I still bleed every month, so that's not what's happening to me, right? Or I don't have a period anymore, so I shouldn't have symptoms anymore. I'm on the other side of it. I haven't had a period in over a year or years out, or I haven't had a period in a decade. And women can go into menopause for all different reasons. Sometimes it'll happen as a natural progression. Other times it's a result of massive trauma or stress. Could be medications. It could be cancer treatment. It could be different things that have put women into that state. Just because you do not bleed every single month does not mean that you are not going to have different symptoms that show up. And again, instead of, we've just been taught, like I look at what is released on social media through a very different lens as a clinician. And when we're being, everything is about hot flashes and night sweats and itchy ears and vaginal dryness and all of those things that are not fun to experience. And so many women are perpetually put into a fear place over breast cancer, however, not really understanding that our greatest risk for our own mortality comes from our metabolic health. That impacts everything from our brain health and reducing things like dementia and Alzheimer's, which is actually type 3 diabetes, to also reducing our risk of heart disease, which continues to remain the #1 killer of women. And so we have all these distractive mechanisms out in the world telling us, worry about this, look over here, do that. And it's like, if you can pull it all in and we can get you to focus on metabolic health, which at its core means your mitochondrial health. In English, what it means is optimize digestion, make sure your gut and your liver and gallbladder health, which sound like 3 different things, but are working together as one system, are in check. Get you to start to understand how you can really begin to realize what you have going on in your body. Because ladies, if you poop every day, that doesn't mean you have healthy digestion. And I promise I'm going to go deeper on this tonight, but I want you to dial in and understand that metabolic health, your triglycerides, your cholesterol, your insulin response, when our estrogen lowers, when our visceral fat starts to increase, when our arteries become more rigid because we don't have that same amount of estrogen, when your blood pressure is so low that you are dizzy all the time when you go from sitting to standing or lying to standing, You can't do downward dog and forward folds and come up without seeing stars. Every time you try to work out, you feel like you get sick. Just before your period comes on, you feel like you're getting sick. All of these things that as women we've just taught, like, that's just me, just dismiss that. Not so. Not so and not true, and there's a reason behind everything. So I'm going to do the best job that I can tonight, breaking down what I'm going to teach you in a way that you're going to understand it. I'm not going to be able to constantly go back and forth into answering questions. So I'm going to teach a couple of concepts and then I'm going to come into the Q&A, and I'll manage it that way. So let's start here at the first, which, you know, it's a mouthful what I just said to you all, but I want to circle back to the very first thing I talked about there, which comes to your cycle. Now, those of you who haven't had a period in a long time, I want you to think back to when you had a cycle. What kind of information, because we know our period is a report card, just like your bowels and your digestive system is a daily report card, your sleep is a report card, your energy, your mood, like our body is a data bank. It is the coolest thing ever, and it's always talking. So if you were to go back and talk to your cycle, to talk to your period, to talk to yourself throughout the month, what would the response be? What was the story, or what is the story right now that your cycle was trying to communicate with you? Was it no big deal? Like your period, do you know some women say, like, I didn't even really know it was going to come. It just came like clockwork and I had it and it was kind of fine and then it left. And other women are like, it came with a vengeance, took me out for days. It felt like it ruled my life. Other women are like, I had no idea when it was coming. I had no idea when it was coming. I had cysts, I had fibroids, I had endometriosis, PCOS. I had lots of issues that were going on. Understanding what's going on in your cycle, knowing that when you are coming into perimenopause, which these cycle changes can begin as early as your mid-30s. And for a woman who's been under a massive amount of stress or who has maybe struggled with her weight and amenorrhea, these symptoms can start much earlier. So the little changes you might notice might be like, you know, the no big deal things. Your cycle's a day or two shorter. Your flow is a little bit lighter or a little bit heavier. You know, you kind of get some clots here and there, but it's no big deal. This is kind of the languaging. When it starts to become more impactful is when you say things like, you know, my period used to come every 28, 29 days. Now it comes like every 25 days. That's a more significant change, just a 3 to 4 day difference. My period always used to start red and full on, and now it starts like brown for a couple days or light pink for a couple days. That's spotting. That is oftentimes an early sign and signal that progesterone is a little bit lower than probably what we would like in the body, or maybe what we would expect coming into that period of time. Because as you get closer into into menopause, you are not going to ovulate every single cycle. And our body really relies on ovulation to be able to produce fresh new progesterone on the scene. You start to notice these changes in conjunction with things like your sleep being impacted, your bowels being off, your mood really being a little bit more, I always say, like prickly, right? So maybe you used to have a little bit of PMS and now you're like, we should hide the sharp objects. You know, you just really feel a pronounced difference. Now, for some women, this will be PMS, which is premenstrual syndrome, which is going to be like a couple of days up to a max of about 5 days before your period starts. When you just don't have the patience, people you love really irritate you, you don't want to people, and your body and everything is just like, you're feeling it. You're feeling it. You're losing your ability to like stay quiet and manage and stay tight-lipped. You have no filter, okay? As you get closer into these stages, our filters just disappear. I actually think it's a good thing when you learn how to manage it, but we'll get there. If you have PMDD, this is very different. And for a lot of women, this can happen around this time where you actually, the first half of your cycle, so on your period feels like a relief. You're like, on my period, I actually feel fine, physically, mentally, and emotionally. The week after my period, I feel fine. And then around the mid-month when I would ovulate, from that point until I get my next period, that's when the rage comes in. That is when the anxiety, the depression, the headaches, the migraines. And now it's like, I used to only get PMS for this period of time. Now I feel like half the month, I don't know who I am. I'm not happy. I don't show up in the same way. And so that's a very different scenario. And this is where working with someone one-on-one can really help you understand what's going on. Okay? And the training really does matter, because when you're going to your regular family doctor, even your OBGYN, even your endocrinologist, they're not necessarily going to understand some of these patterns in the same way that someone who has a more functional perspective and is looking at all of the contributing factors might. And so why this matters is that these aren't just little quirks. This is your hormonal pattern starting to have a new conversation. Estrogen and progesterone are beginning like a perimenopause dance. Everyone just gets taught that your hormones go low right out of the gates. And that is not typically what happens for majority of women. Not all, but for the majority of women, progesterone will be the first of the sex hormones to start to decrease. Then, which also means that when you have lower progesterone, estrogen is going to ride a little higher. Now, a lot of people nowadays do not like the term estrogen dominance. They're going to tell you estrogen dominance is a marketing term. Well, it's also English. And it's very easy for someone to understand what dominance means. Dominance means that estrogen is like taking charge. Estrogen is higher, it is stronger than progesterone. And in layman's terms, that is what is happening. So if you were to test a woman's hormones at that time of the month and to notice that she did not ovulate or did not have a strong luteinizing pulse and ovulation didn't happen in the way that it used to, you would in fact see that her estrogen is sitting much higher than her progesterone. That is going to impact her mood, her emotions, headaches, breast tenderness, swelling, water retention, all of those things that we just kind of brush under the rug of PMS. Now, we also have some women who have progesterone sensitivity. And so a hormone that in a lot of women's bodies would calm them and ground them can oftentimes do the opposite. And that has to do with GABA receptors in the brain. It also has to do with histamine. So when you have women who have, and this is something that some of you had mentioned in the beginning here, is that you have all these new food sensitivities you never used to have before. You have allergies you never used to have before. You have these interesting new symptoms that show up and you're like, I do not know what it is that's going on. This is where the histamine load can start to be problematic. Now, histamine in and of itself, its job is not just to respond to an allergic response. It's part of your immune function. It also has different interactions throughout the body with neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, as well as your hormones. And so let's say, for instance, we're talking about someone whose estrogen's a little higher. And the body has also got some gut stuff going on, gas and bloating. They react to a lot of new foods now. Maybe they've been told they have IBS or leaky gut, SIBO, candida, where there's pathogens, there's bacteria that's now part of the issue. And so it doesn't really matter what you eat at this point, you always feel like you're having some kind of response. And you'll know this as well too, because most people will say in the beginning of the day, I feel pretty good, but then as the day goes, it gets worse. Well, this is oftentimes a sign of having a difficult time at being able to break down histamine, oftentimes an enzyme deficiency of DAO, in being able to properly get that out. And so what happens is when it stays in the body, histamine responses can show up in lots of ways. So in mood, it can show up as anxiety, it can show up as heart palpitations, it can show up as diarrhea, it can show up as reflux. And you can go and think that you have GERD, right? You've got gastroesophageal reflux disorder. And in fact, it's histamine issues, massive in the skin. There's a huge connection between what's going on in your gut and your skin and your mood. So acne, eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis. When I was in my late 30s, one of the ways that my body was really like, you have to stop drinking wine, was I would have an immediate histamine response. And it was literally like on a Thursday, I had never had this response in my body ever before. And on Friday, I couldn't have a glass of wine ever again without having the response. Hot, flushed face, congested, head not feeling amazing, looked like I had rosacea in my cheeks, and I would get like kind of like a prickly heat rash, and I would wake up with hot flashes only. Well, it wasn't truly a hot flash. It was actually a histamine response from having the alcohol. Not fun, not fun. And that was a big one. And when we think about histamine rich foods, they're all fun foods. So buckle up when I talk to you about what these ones are. So alcohol, okay. Spinach, avocado, citrus, tomatoes. So when you're thinking like you put spinach in your smoothie every single day, you eat avocados every single day. Leftovers, that makes meal prep real fun, because if you don't eat that food within 24 hours, that is increasing a histamine response. And no greater example than what was happening in my house yesterday with fruit flies. We all know what happens if we leave food just sitting there, right? Food is left in the garbage, food is left in the sink, food is left in the container, in the car, or somewhere else. What happens to that? it starts to off gas. It starts to putrefy. It starts to ferment. It starts to rot. It starts to smell. It starts to grow fur. It can grow bugs. Okay. Same in your bodies, my friends. So when we have undigested food, when we have a difficult time breaking down the food that we are consuming, okay, when you have gas and bloating, you have off gassing happening in your body. Now, a little bit of gas, totally normal. A little bit of bloating, totally normal. But if this is happening all the time for you, every time you eat, if you're like, I clear a room after I eat because it smells so bad, you're uncomfortable, you have a lot of pain, a lot of gurgling, we most likely have some stagnation happening on a bacterial level. The food is sitting there, not breaking down, putrefying, fermenting, and off-gassing. And this starts behind the scenes for a long time for people before they start to get some of the bigger signs and symptoms. Aged cheeses, okay? Cured meats, deli meats, a lot of the food that most people are consuming on a regular basis, fermented food, kimchi, sauerkraut, pickled things. So all the superfoods that we are told to go and to consume, for some people, not a superfood for their body, right? And you'll know this. Like, do you have to clear your throat every single day? Are you horking phlegm up? Do you constantly have low-grade sinus congestion? And all the time you're like, oh, it's my allergies. Oh, it's my allergies. Oh, it's the dust in the house. Well, two truths can be at the same time. So if you have mold exposure, if you've had Lyme, okay, if you have heavy metal toxicity, if you have dust and things and dust mites that are in the house, anything that's sitting stagnant where you've had that exposure, it can increase how your body responds. Now, estrogen also increases that histamine and that mast cell response. So this is why at certain times a month, like a woman who has a histamine overload, who has a lot of these gut issues, she might actually feel worse in the first part of her cycle leading into ovulation when estrogen is higher than she does when she's coming into her period. This would be something I'd be writing down. If I was listening to this right now and I was like, you just mentioned some things that I have felt, I would be making note of this and writing it down. I'll tell you another way that for me it showed up, and then I'm going to go a little deeper into the next point here. If have any of you ever heard of like geographical tongue, or you've eaten something and it hurts your tongue? Your tongue gets a little red, your tongue gets irritated, you get like little pimples, you get a lot of cankers, okay? Pay attention. The things that we are consuming are contributing to that. And so if you notice when you have a lot of tomatoes or sauces that have vinegar or lemon or those kind of things, and you're like, oh my God, my tongue hurts, right? You go on a pineapple bender and you're like, tongue, roof of the mouth. Those are all high histamine releasing foods that can contribute to it as well. So it can happen to anyone, Angela. It doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter how old you are. Okay. I see this in my son, not as much in my daughter. My son and I say like we're the flowers of the house, but my daughter and my husband, they'll be like the cockroaches that'll be here forever. Their systems are so strong, not my son and I. And so again, just pay attention to how you're feeling with certain things. Now, here's the tricky part. When it comes to body composition, and if you are trying to eat high protein, you're trying to build muscle, burn fat, do all of these things, oftentimes you are going to be following mono meals, meaning you've measured out your macros on certain things. So you keep repeating the same meals over and over and over again. You do what we do, like we food prep, right? So it's like you make food and you've got it sitting in the fridge. And I don't want you to sit here and all, like literally, there's not 157 of you in here right now who have a histamine response, but some of you will. All I'm saying to you is pay attention, because I'm talking to you tonight about things I think that we glaze over, and I want to bring your attention to it. I don't need to tell you, pay attention if you have a hot flash. You're going to friggin' know if you have a hot flash, but you may not know that this is what's happening. So paying attention to that is really, really important. When you are going into your doctor and you are asking for things like labs or you're asking for blood work, what you need to know is if you're going into a regular medical environment to your family doctor, a lot of the tests that are going to tell you the most about what's going on in your body, they won't be the ones running them because they're not functional tests, they are conventional tests. And there's going to be a discrepancy between you being told you're normal versus how you say you actually feel, because normal based on reference ranges from labs and suboptimal based on the ranges we want to look at are not the same. Okay. And in that blood work guide I go much deeper into this. But when you are going to your doctor, you can't go and say, I just want to get a test to see if I'm in perimenopause. They may run something like your follicular stimulating hormone on day 3 of your cycle, or when you would normally get your cycle. And if that is, above 25, definitely above 40, that's oftentimes an indication you're getting closer to the tail end of perimenopause and into menopause. But there's not a single test you can run for peri and menopause. There's not a diagnosis of that. It is a collection of symptoms of how you're feeling combined with other things that'll show up in your lab work, your thyroid markers, your insulin markers, what's going on with your sodium and your potassium, a complete blood panel, all of those other factors are going to be able to tell us a lot more than simply just trying to test and look at the hormones. And if you really want to run hormone testing, you want to work with someone who's going to look at the hormones more than at just one point. You're not looking at hormones at 9 a.m. because that's when the blood lab opens, and then basing all your recommendations and your protocol on that one time. If you're going to be testing hormones, you want to be testing them at multiple times throughout the day. And for some women's bodies, you'd be testing multiple days over time. That would be through either urine or saliva to really be marking where are the highs and the lows happening, what's going on at different points in the cycle. And what we want to be looking at, and this is what we do as functional practitioners, is we're trying to understand your patterns, not your snapshot. We're trying to understand the pattern, because when you cannot, ladies, gone are the years where you can create yourself, a 3, 4, 6 month protocol based off one piece of information. Do you all understand that part of how much is changing in our bodies, and that we can't just go and park everything on one lab result? You have to step back and look at the whole story and picture of the body. And then you have to start to pay attention to the patterns. This is why you paying attention to your signs and your symptoms really big. And yes, histamine's not considered the same as an inflammation response, but it is closely tied to an inflammatory response. Inflammation can come from many different things, right? Cytokines, prostaglandins, there's a lot, LPS, there's lots of different things that'll drive inflammation, but histamine won't help. And where there's inflammation, there can be histamine and vice versa. So let's talk about this through. So step 1 that we just talked about was really about pay attention to some signs and symptoms that you may not be. Also pay attention to what is happening now in your cycle or what used to happen. This is pattern recognition for us as women. This is where you start to go back in time and really start to piece together why potentially you're feeling the way that you are feeling right now. The next thing is really recognize, how does your body recover? Do you have the ability to recover? And I want to talk about sleep here for a moment. Most women struggle at this time of their life sleeping on their own. Meaning not sleeping by yourself. I'll talk about that. But I mean going to bed without having to take something like magnesium or reishi or GABA or L-theanine or melatonin or progesterone or a sleeping pill or something like that. Most women struggle with their sleep at this point. Okay, now if you're waking around 3 in the morning every single night staring at the ceiling, if your legs are feeling restless, if you're having really weird, vivid dreams, if you're waking up, damp or in a sweat, why this matters is that your nervous system is recalibrating along with your hormones. Cortisol patterns are shifting, irrespective if you don't have a stressful life. By nature of your body shifting your estrogen, your ovulation and progesterone, DHEA, which is a hormone that your adrenals produce, testosterone, how your body manages glucose, all changing. The amount of melatonin that is produced in your body changing. The amount of leptin, ghrelin, changing. So because we have all of these shifts and changes happening, and cortisol is part of that big hormone gang, things start to get a little wonky. And when this is happening, the nervous system, but also your limbic system, which your limbic system, what you have to think of this as, this is like your brain's alarm system. I was talking in stories today about how, I get these spiky gray hairs that grow out the top of my head. And instead of getting mad at them, I've just now revere them as my wisdom satellites that are just gathering information for me. Your brain does this without your permission. So the part of your brain that is working to understand, is this a safe environment or do I need to get out of Dodge? Do I resonate with where I am right now, what I'm hearing and who am I with, or do I need to get out of Dodge? Do I need to walk on eggshells, or can I be calm and relaxed? This whole system, along with your adrenals, which are like your body's SWAT team in response to stress, it's on hypervigilance. And sometimes it fires when it shouldn't, and other times it doesn't fire when you wish that it did. And in the middle of the night, when your body is trying to rest and decompress, and your brain is trying to recover, and your cells and everything is trying to do what it is meant to, this is oftentimes where things can go out of whack. And so when we're looking at this, you need to pay attention to your patterns. You need to understand, is this happening on an ongoing basis? If you notice that you are religiously waking up at the same time every single night, I want you to start to think about what you're doing in your day. So look at the cortisol rhythm throughout the day. When we're looking at this in terms of how our exposure impacts this, your relationship to light, I cannot stress this enough. Okay, your circadian rhythm is massive. You want to get natural light in the morning, not just to wake you up and have a healthy cortisol awakening response in the beginning of the day, but please know and understand that this impacts your appetite control and regulation throughout the day. It impacts your blood sugar throughout the rest of the day. It impacts your body's ability to get the cue later in the day to start to produce enough of the precursors to melatonin to help you stay asleep. So we can't live, these wild, crazy days and be exposed all the time and running on empty, and then at night be like, okay, I got to do my nighttime routine. I want to be asleep in 20 minutes. Pop a magnesium, pop a reishi, slap an eye mask on, throw some mouth tape on, bam, and you're just going to go to sleep. That's not the reality for most people. So when you're going to your doctor or you're working with your practitioner and you're like, if you could just help me sleep, I feel like that would change everything. Ask them important things like, could we test my cortisol over the day? Can we do, and the best way to look at your cortisol is either through your urine or saliva. So you can actually, with a medical doctor, like they'll give you a jug and you pee multiple times over the course of the day to get a greater snapshot. You can do salivary testing, and that can help you to understand what your cortisol awakening response is. I would also ask your doctor if you're really struggling sleeping and you feel like you've tried everything that everyone has recommended. Can we look at my fasting glucose and insulin? Can we look at my HbA1c? What you need to know about your fasting glucose and insulin is that the day you test it, and in that moment, it's the snapshot of right then and there what's available and what's happening. Your HbA1c is 90 days. It's looking at the overall picture of the last 3 months. Now, you could also wear a continuous glucose monitor. That's going to help you to also understand on a deeper level what's going on. But please know, if you go to use a glucose monitor, your first couple of days data might be skewed until that sensor has had enough time to pick up your patterns. Very, very important to understand the patterns in your body. What would be causing the changes in the pattern? In terms of the pattern of how your body responds to histamine, Diane, if you just want to ask that again here, when you take magnesium, you get the craziest dreams. It's not that necessarily you're a deep sleeper. Not everybody actually does well with magnesium in the evening. So if you are someone like my mom cannot do magnesium at night, it makes her agitated, even more restless, and it actually does not help her sleep. So my mom takes her magnesium in the afternoon. And I work with a lot of clients who have magnesium sensitivity. Sometimes it's the type. I do find more people react to citrate than they do a bisglycinate or a threonate. So sometimes it is the type. Now, a lot of women, when we work with them and we ask, you taking magnesium, the kind they're taking is the citrate. It's a powdered form, and they're using it to actually help with their bowel movements as well. And so that sometimes can be a little bit irritating to the body. So you can try bisglycinate, you could try threonate. There's also different forms. Not everybody might do well with taking it orally. Maybe you actually have to use a magnesium spray. So you would spray the magnesium on your feet and on your legs and massage it in and notice, do I feel the same kind of excitedness? Do I still get the crazy dreams if I have it from a distal point versus putting it in the mouth, and it has to go through first pass. It's got to go through the liver and then it's got to get into the gut. So if you have a lot of digestive issues and you also have a sensitivity to magnesium, and that's not going to be the only thing. For people who also have like certain genetic SNP issues, histamine issues, and that big response, certain B vitamins won't make them feel very good. Even vitamin C, if it's ascorbic acid, won't make them feel good. And that's oftentimes because that in that ascorbic acid, it's coming from a genetically modified form of citric acid, which is corn. And we wouldn't know that as the layman average person. We're like, oh, I'm just taking vitamin C because I heard it's great for my adrenals, good to support progesterone, awesome for my immune function. Some people can't manage probiotics because like when I was in school, when I first started in clinical practice in 2001, we were told to give our clients acidophilus. It was a single bacteria. And then a company came out with, and I won't name the company because they're a great company, but they came out with like a multi-strain, many different bacteria, because the intention was we know that the human gut microbiome has trillions of different species. And we want to get a multifaceted approach to this ecosystem. And it totally makes sense up here, it makes sense on paper, doesn't always make sense in the human body. There's another reason why we are huge fans of running stool tests. All the women that we work with, especially those who are inside the Perimenopause and Menopause project, every single one of them, we test their poop because this tells us everything we need to know about the gut, shows us what's going on from a bacterial, fungal, candida, H. pylori, parasite, the whole shebang. And then we can better understand, instead of just saying, just go grab this one, we can better understand what kind it is that she would need. What could cause cortisol to be low before bed? Well, again, when you have your hormones tested, it's looking at that day. So like for me as a practitioner, if I am seeing that someone's hormones are low at a certain time, I'm not just going to go, oh, look how low it is. I'm going to ask them what was happening in that day or the couple days leading into the test. Right? Like what was going on in life, because it is oftentimes situational. It's the same thing. If I see sky high readings, I'm like, did you have a super stressful day? Did you sleep that night? What was going on in the morning? And when you ask more questions, you can start to understand the influence that has contributed to that showing up. Now, low cortisol in the evening, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Our cortisol should be at our lowest in the evening. We just don't want it on the floor. So you have to really look at your lifestyle. I find with a lot of women, I see spikes at 2 times the day. I see their second test, which is about 2 hours after waking, they test and it is sky high. And the reason is because they've been running a marathon in the morning. They've had coffee or a matcha, caffeine, something. They've been getting kids out the door. They've been getting to work. They've been putting out fires in their email inbox. They did a high intensity workout. They haven't eaten yet because they're fasting. And then that makes 100% sense why their cortisol would be elevated. The opposite side of that spectrum is you have somebody who's low, and I'm like, I don't even need to test your cortisol, because the person who says to me, I am so exhausted, I cannot get up, I have no motivation, my libido is in the tank, and not just in terms of sex and intimacy, but just like, I do not care about any of the things. I don't have the energy to work out. I don't feel like I recover. We know we're dealing with a dysbiotic cortisol awakening response. And so we need to get to work on that. Are you looking at things like sleep, food, and exercise you're doing during the day to cause the pattern to change? Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is the thing, is the health of our body and the quality of our sleep at night begins in the day. We can't do it in the evening. We've got to be setting that throughout the day. So it's making sure you're eating enough. It's making sure you're getting protein, carbs, fiber, healthy fats throughout the day, moving the body. We're not designed to be sitting and doing this and being stagnant all the time. We are literally not designed for that. So getting the lymph to flow, being hydrated, spending time with good people, eating real, whole, good quality food, all of those things are going to contribute, okay? I would not be looking at a blood test to test cortisol awakening response. I'd only be looking at urine and saliva. That would be me for that. Okay, and then looking at things like, the other thing I'd be asking and talking to your practitioner about is the level that either chronic or acute stress is playing on your system. Right? And when it comes to sleep, here's the biggest question to ask yourself, and I'll ask this to all of you. How many of you think that you have a sleep issue, or do you have an environment issue? Meaning, if you could sleep alone in a dark room with no light, peace and quiet, no kids, no partner, no dog, you actually sleep great. Have you tested this theory? Because if that is the answer, the problem is you may be trying to go and take all these things and do all this stuff. But the reality is the only reason you are not sleeping well is because you have an environmental sleep issue. You have a snorer, you have somebody who, is flicking the blankets all around. You have somebody jumping into bed with you. You have a dog or a cat that is waking up and waking you up. So I'm curious to know, which is it for you? Is it environment, or you're like, no, truly it is me. I have the sleep issue. I am the problem. Okay, for that. Most of you, a lot of you, it's environment. 50-50. Yeah. So here's the thing. So you work on you, and then you have a better opportunity to actually sleep better in your environment. I know right now at this stage, for me, it is my environment. It's not me. When I go back home and I stay with my parents and it's me and I'm alone in the basement, I sleep 9 to 10 hours. When I am here in this house with the dog and my husband and the family, no, I get like 7 hours. So that's a very different thing. I'm not going to go and try and take a bunch of supplements and pills and do things just to try to knock me out. I got to look at it and be like, what parts can I control and what things can I shift and change? Okay. I need to win the lottery. If I have obligations, I don't sleep the same. Yeah, stress. It is like the hamster wheel that is constantly going. So when we do work with women inside of the Perimenopause Project, and they're like, I'm still not sleeping. I'm doing everything you're telling me and I'm still not sleeping. And I'm like, well, do you live in the same house? Do you have the same job? Have you started to work on your calendar, on your boundaries? Are you saying the thing that you want to say, but you're not saying out loud? Because believe it or not, all of those things matter. It's why we enjoy going away on a holiday, because we're like, I just need to get away from everything. And again, these are the things that can be massive pieces we're skipping over. And we're going, I'm just going to go start HRT and it's going to solve everything. I'm just going to go and take, a melatonin spray and it'll solve everything. Those things may help, but if there's underlying things happening behind the scenes, that stuff, like, it's going to pop itself back up again at some time and at some point. Okay, so let's talk about the third piece now, which comes back to your digestive health and that liver and that gallbladder. One of the pieces that oftentimes is being missed is that when you go to your doctor and even with a practitioner and you're trying to work on digestion and that, if you're not actually looking at what is going on beneath the scenes or, beneath the jeans, beneath the waist, you could be missing really big opportunity to understand what's going on. If constipation has become your new normal, or that's just always been how your body has been, your digestion is slower than it used to be. So you're fuller longer, you've got indigestion, you have the opposite where you feel like you can just never get full. You're nauseous after you eat certain things. So if you go have something that's higher in fat or that is a little bit more rich or decadent and you feel nauseous, that's a big sign that we probably have some sluggish bile that's being produced by the liver but regulated by the gallbladder. If you've got pain and discomfort in the right hand side, right? If when you lie back in your bed or you're on the ground or you're in yoga and you have your hands on your tummy and you're feeling around and you're like, I think I like literally feel poop that I can palpate. These are all things, again, to pay attention to. As I was talking about earlier, maybe now you're starting to notice you are reacting to a bunch of foods that you never used to anymore. And why this matters so much is that your digestive system is not separate than your hormones. In fact, it's central to the whole show, to the whole shebang. That bile that your liver is producing helps you process and break down your fats and absorb fat-soluble vitamins. So why are so many people deficient in vitamins A, D, E, and K? Well, if you have a difficult time absorbing and uptaking fat, this could be one of the reasons. Your gut bacteria is also helping you detox. So if you have a difficult time at being able to eliminate, to poop optimally, you're like, I don't sweat a lot. You have some of those higher estrogen symptoms. You feel very puffy and inflamed often. You're noticing that you are gaining weight. We really want to take a deep dive and look at what is happening within your gut and your liver and gallbladder. Right? We also know that when estrogen starts to actually decline as you're getting into later stage perimenopause and closer to no longer having a bleed each month, that your body's ability to break down a lot of the off-gassing properties and histamines from food starts to decrease. And this is when more women will start to feel like they're having symptoms of SIBO, or they're having symptoms of just, what is we think is belly fat sometimes isn't belly fat. It is a lot of gas and bloating that's coming from that bacteria. And it just compounds it and can make it worse. And so I know so many women that say to me, I'm going to take a digestive enzyme. I'm going to start HRT and hoping that that's going to be the thing that makes the big change in the switch, and then they get started on it and it's not necessarily what is going to be the thing. We have so many women right now who are coming into the practice who are taking semaglutide in a form of a GLP. I'd say the most common right now is tirzepatide, and some women can have good results with it because it can reduce inflammation and it can help to quiet the food noise, as everyone says, and other people not so much. So again, this is what I'm saying, is that if you keep chasing down what someone else is doing because it's worked for them, but you haven't yet taken the time to, even if it's yourself, okay, even if you're like, I don't want to go work with someone, to sit down and write out a timeline of how long you've been feeling this way and what are all the bits and pieces. Because I will tell you, when you come, like if you came and worked with us, the more that you understand what's going on in your body and the better you can describe it, the faster we can put something in place. Really, really important. If you don't have a gallbladder, it will definitely impact your weight gain. Not having a gallbladder impacts quite a lot. And so you do need to be taking a digestive enzyme that has some bile and some pancreatin to help do the job of what the gallbladder was there to do. And oftentimes it's like when we look at why did the gallbladder need to be removed in the first place? So gallbladder attacks, gallstones, all of those issues, there were probably some warning signs beforehand, but it just gets treated like an optional organ. And we don't really need it, and you can live without it, so we can just go and take it. And so you'll get relief from the pain and discomfort that was happening, but not necessarily from what was actually going on behind the scenes for that. GLP-1 for weight loss and non-diabetic. Well, this is what most people who are using it now. It was previously used a lot for diabetics, and I don't want to go a lot into GLPs because I have a lot to still cover, but this is now, it's being used primarily for women who are struggling to lose weight, who are struggling with cravings, who are struggling with, that element of being consistent. And so using the GLPs can be helpful for some women. I am not against them, but I am definitely not in the group that is going to say, I think everyone that's struggling should be on them. It's case by case. It really depends what's going on with their health and with their history. If you have IBS symptoms now that's limiting your diet, what I would recommend, Janet, is that you work with somebody that actually runs stool testing, because IBS is just, it's a kitchen sink term. It's a term. If you've been told you have IBS, you need to work with somebody who actually digs deeper, because IBS means that they've just, kind of branded the symptoms all under that one, but not giving you any real recommendations. So even to say what to eat and not to eat, it's going to be different for everyone depending on what the big triggers are, okay? Fatty liver, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease on the rise. You've got to look at your insulin and your glucose, right? And you've got to look at those contributing factors. All of this, increase in cholesterol, fatty liver disease, everything that's being talked about here all start to increase as we have the decrease in certain hormones in our bodies. So again, it's like you can go and take herbs for the liver, dandelion and milk thistle and hepato from St. Francis to help to take the burden off, but it's being able to actually understand why this is happening. And each one of these questions that everyone's asking, I could spend an hour just on the one thing. And so that level of stuff, those are things that, are inside of courses. Okay, let me come back to this, because otherwise I'll just stay in the chat the entire time. So coming back to looking at digestively, like how many of you truly understand what is going on with your digestion? Really, really important. And for those of you who drink coffee in the morning and you're like, I drink my coffee or I have my tea or I have my matcha and I have a poop right away, it doesn't necessarily mean that all is well down there. So being able to have a really good quality full void where it's not mucky, it's not dry, it's not pellety, really important. So when you're working with somebody on this, the key questions you want to ask: can we run a comprehensive stool test? I want to check my digestive markers. Can you talk to me about how my gallbladder and my liver are functioning? And this you'd have to run through testing and also asking you very specific questions. If you think that you have something like SIBO, testing specifically for that. And then this is how you get to the point of knowing what foods are going to be good for you and what aren't. A lot of the general foods that are talked about, like gluten and dairy, can be very intolerant for a lot of people. And again, when you think about something like dairy, most women, even if they know it doesn't agree with them, they are still going to consume it because right now you are being pumped with the protein quotient. Ladies, you got to hit your protein. What are the easiest ways for women to do that? Greek vanilla yogurt and cottage cheese. Everything's made out of cottage cheese now. Everything is made out of cottage cheese. So the way a lot of women are going after their protein is through a lot of dairy, and dairy in some bodies is going to be pro-inflammatory. Gluten can be pro-inflammatory in some people's guts, right? You can run tests and markers. I knew for years my body didn't do well with gluten, but it is delicious. And it was just easier to keep eating it. And I ran stool testing, and my anti-gliadin, my antibody from my immune system for it, was 4 times higher than what it should be. I have non-celiac positive gluten sensitivity. So I don't test positive for celiac disease, but if I were to continue to eat gluten and ignore the way that I was feeling and ignore the marker on that test, I would most likely end up with that down the road. Massively impacts thyroid health and function, massively impacts your hair growth, your mood, your emotion, your weight, all of those things. So again, it's like, I totally understand when we are like, I want the quick. I want the quick, right? And you'll see, even like it's very telling when how long you'll stay present for in the conversation. If you're not hearing the quick clickbait right away, you oftentimes will opt out. And then you're just going to end up back on another webinar. You're going to end up inside of something else, and then you're still going to be looking for that quick thing. So again, when I'm talking about this, even if I'm referencing and sharing a story through the lens of me, does that land with you at all? Right? Does that land with you? I want you to think as well about your mood and your emotions. How have you been currently feeling and showing up in your own life? Do you feel like you are in the room but kind of in a fishbowl? Like you're here, you can hear what everyone is saying, but you're just not connecting to it. You don't care. You are in that place where you're just feeling a little bit apathetic. You have brain fog. I would actually say, if I had to tell you one of the top 5 most common symptoms that women are coming to me with. I was just at an event last week in Toronto, and part of it was health in the beginning, and then it wasn't. I'm telling you, the number one complaint in that space, in the functional health space, was brain fog. My brain does not function the same way that it used to. My memory recall is not the same. My level of engagement, interest, consistency, clarity, focus, motivation, I don't got it anymore. I don't know what's happening. And the women that I've been talking to about this, everyone laughs and jokes, and they're like, ha, hope it's not dementia. And I'm like, well, A, that's not funny. And B, we don't want to just automatically go down that path. We have to understand that everything is interconnected. And so, yes, your hormones impact the way that your brain functions and feels, but so too does your gut, because this is where you're producing majority of your neurotransmitters. Okay. And so, it's a big one. It is a big one. And if you're feeling that, what you want to be thinking about are some of the things that we've just talked about in terms of, ladies, get digestion in check. Really, truly start to honor digestion. Pay attention to how well you are recovering in sleep. And if there's a struggle point there, start to wind back and think earlier in the day, what are some of the things I can put in place? And when I said at the beginning of the class, you're going to have to be patient. This isn't stuff that's going to change automatically, especially if it's something you've been struggling with for a very long time. If there is an emotional connection as to why you are not sleeping, that also may take a longer period of time. So when you are working with someone, functionally, some of the questions that you want to ask that can help you to get better results when it comes to your brain health and function. Can we check inflammatory markers? Can we be looking at things like my insulin, which can impact my brain health? Can we look at minerals, right? We test your poop and we test hair. We do comprehensive blood analysis. So when you go to your doctor and you get your blood work done, when you come into the Perimenopause Menopause project, we do a complete review of that and help you understand what all those markers mean. The hard thing right now, ladies, is that we're all trying, like I'm from Ontario. In Ontario, it's called OHIP, which is your free healthcare. I live in BC now, it's called Interior Health. And I understand it because look at my husband and I are entrepreneurs. We don't have health, like we pay for a healthcare plan, but everything is out of pocket. Everything is like a tap of the card and it's not covered. So everyone is trying to figure out how to manage the budget through the lens of that. But the problem is that we are getting partial testing and partial results. So if we go to the doctor and we feel like we're getting this complete blood lab, but it's not complete, and then you're trying to base everything on that, or like so many of you have said in here, well, I went and got blood work done and everything's normal. If everything was normal, why are you here? Everything is not feeling normal. So what it means is that you are part of a system that is doing partial testing, that is doing incomplete reviews, that is doing incomplete connections because they do not have the time. The system is not set up for your doctor to take the amount of time that they need with you, to ask you the right questions, to sit down and explain to you what is or potentially could be going on in your body. It is not set up that way. And it is not their fault. It is the system. And the system is set up that way because, my friends, this is the way it is. This is big business. There's a lot of us out there trying to look for support, and majority of us are women right now. So this is where, again, coming back to being that CEO of your health, standing in that place of confidence and knowledge and empowerment is going to help you, because you will have less dependency on a system that is really struggling right now. And then you pay out of pocket for the specific things that you need. You pay out of pocket for the tests that you really want to know and understand. You pay out of pocket for the guidance and the expertise of someone where this is all they do. They're not working with you on hormones and then going and working on, ear infection and, lice, those kind of things. Like, they have their area of expertise, right, that they are dialing in on. I would also be asking, if you're talking to your doctor about your brain health, your mood, and your emotions, before we talk about antidepressants, can we talk about what could be contributing to these symptoms? Can we talk about maybe how my hormone levels could be connecting to why I'm feeling what I'm feeling physically and emotionally? How my stress and my nervous system feeling dysregulated or amplifying this? These are the kind of questions that with whom you're working with, you want to be able to understand. Because the mood changes you're having, valid and real. You are not crazy. This is not just in your head. I can promise you that. I do not know your story, but I can tell you I have listened to thousands and thousands of women at this point, and I am telling you it is not just in your head. If you are experiencing something and you can put words to it, and even if you feel like they're not the best words, like you have a hard time articulating, the fact that you are feeling and holding on to certain emotions and sensations, that you have pain in your body, that you are feeling inflammation, this is part of the process to be able to understand what is going on. And in my opinion, ladies, healing your nervous system is as important as supporting your hormones. And oftentimes we are taught the opposite. Just start with the hormones first. We don't have to test anything. We don't have to look at anything else. Let's just get you balanced in your hormones, and then we'll go at it from there. And for some women, because we're all different, it might work. And for others, they need what I'm talking about here. They need to have the understanding and do the groundwork. What can you do if you can't afford to continually ongoing work with somebody one-on-one? To be honest, I would move into a hybrid, into a group program where you're paying a lesser rate because you're inside of a group, but you also get some of the one-to-one. That is why 8 years ago I started creating the Hormone Project, and that's what it was. You learn as a group, so you get the education. It's paramount. The education will fast track you, and it will actually prevent you from spending more money down the road. Okay. And then the other side of that is that, and then you get private one-to-one sessions and you get the functional testing. So it's hard. And I have so many colleagues who are naturopaths and FMDs and NPs, and they say, like, it is hard to be able to teach someone and treat someone all in the same session when we're doing like a session a month or a session every 8 weeks or a session whenever it is that they book and come back. It's very difficult. And so here we are as the women, and we have all of this stuff that's going on. We're tired, we're frustrated, we're also trying to work and take care of a house and a family and maybe our parents that are aging, and we're stuck in the middle, and we're trying to show up and do the things right for our body, but we're trying to slap it together and do it through ChatGPT. Like, this is the other thing is, again, so grateful for technology. We couldn't connect without it, but the way in which we're trying to go about our health right now, it is going to create a bottleneck. It is going to create a bottleneck. And so the fifth piece of this is knowing your ability, but also your capacity. Okay. And there is a difference between those two. Just because you can do the things you can do doesn't mean that you should. So, your body's not just rejecting food, but your body can also start to reject energy. So I'm really curious to know, how many of you feel like your level of stress, your current life circumstances that are going on are a big contributing factor to how it is that you're feeling. And this could be job, it could be home, it could be kids, it could be relationships, it could be taking care of parents, it could be any of those things. But how many of you are like, no, the rest of my life is like 100% even keel, it's just my hormones. If I could just get my hormones figured out, everything else would be fine. Okay? It's a lot of you. It's a lot. Okay, a lot. I'm just reading this in here. Yeah. So this is the, can we just like park it here for a moment? For a moment. In one sentence, we are saying that we feel like our body is failing us. Our brain feels broken. Our body just doesn't feel like ours anymore. And we don't understand what's going on and we don't know what's going on. And yet we can all be really honest that there are a lot of stressors and a lot of responsibility and a lot of, what can be loving, but burdens that are placed on us that we have to manage on top of all of the things. And sometimes we need to feel it to heal it. Other times you have to untangle yourself emotionally from a problem to really see it for what it is. Like you might have said, yes, it's my stress. And then if I were to sit down with you and go deeper, you'd be like, I just know it's my stress, but I don't know what the number one thing is. And the thing is, when we say, I don't know, we actually really do know. It's like wherever we go, there we are. I was having this conversation with my daughter tonight. We were talking about something and I said, but you have to remember, it doesn't matter like where you live, where you go, where you work, what friendships you're part of, what relationship, whatever it is, wherever you go, there you are. We are the common denominator. So we think that if we were in a different situation, and sometimes it can be impactful, but the only thing we have control over is ourselves and these decisions that we make and our yeses and our nos. And a resented body, an ignored body doesn't heal the same way that an embraced, loved body does, and one that we are patient with. And I will tell you, this one right here that we're talking about, this is the hardest one that we work on with women. Everything else that sounded super complicated to you listening, that's easy for us. That's easy for us. You come into programs, we teach you everything. You come work with us and we run the test. We understand the labs. You work with me, you work with Stephanie Singh, who's our functional health practitioner in the Perimenopause Project. You work with Christine, who's our master coach for macros and trainer. That stuff's easy. This is the hard stuff. And do you want to know why? Because we can't call your boss and explain what's going on. We can't sit your partner and your kids down and speak for you. We can't move in and do all of this. And listen, we are all mothers as well too. We are all women that are working and taking care of households, and we understand it. And I think that can be one of the differences as to why we get the results we do in the company, is because we do understand you and we do see you and we do hear you. But this can oftentimes be the hardest part, is that you can be eating the best diet, ladies. You can be you can have all the bottles of all the things. Okay, you can slap on the essential oils, you can hydrate, you can work out, you can do all of it. And you can still be sitting there and being like, why do I not feel how I want to feel? You can take the GLP, you can take the hormone replacement therapy, you can take the low dose naltrexone, you could take all of the things. And at the end of the day, if there is something else that is going on, you owe it to yourself to allow it to come up. And this is that thing of sometimes we don't want to hear it. We're like, that's not it. That's not my thing. Listen, you don't have to have gone through something massive in your life that other people would think is massive in order for it to impact you. And ladies, I also just wanted to say, like, you can love your whole family and your partner and also be exhausted. Like, all of that can be true as well. So really understanding the totality of what it is that's going on in your body and allowing yourself to start to make some of those decisions. That a lot of what we say is like, this is hard. Being healthy is hard. Doing things that you've talked about is hard. I didn't come into this specific workshop tonight, this masterclass, wanting to give you a laundry list of a bunch of things to do. I wanted to create conversation around some of the things that we don't necessarily realize are impacting the way that we are feeling, because this is actually the birthplace of massive change, massive change. And in order to understand what the decisions are that you have to make for yourself, you first have to understand where it's coming from. So taking care of ourselves is not hard, but it's radically uncomfortable. But what is really hard is actually being sick. What is really hard is never getting started. And so I always say to women, women reach out and they're like, I'm in my 50s and my 60s. Is it too late? And I'm like, no. Like, how long do you plan on living in this body for? Any time is the best time to start and to take care of yourself, right? We don't want to. I want you to come away having the courage to talk about what's going on in your body with your practitioners, with your doctors. I want you to be prepared leaving this conversation so you can lead your own conversation. I want you to understand that what might be missing is that when you're getting the basic work done or you're being told that you're fine, that, oftentimes we are working with people where it's reactive by design, meaning that, you're at this age, this is what you need to start to do. You've got this symptom, go and buy this thing, instead of it becoming really personalized. You have to be the one to drive that conversation. You have to be the one to drive that. You want to create your own symptom timeline, really look deeply at why you're feeling the way you're feeling, or at least how long it's been going on for. Bring your question list, ask the deeper questions that we've talked about tonight. And the fact is that when we are really trying to get to a place where we can move through the rest of our 40s, like I sit here at 46 years old. And granted, I'm in this industry and I have a lot of accessibility to knowledge and information, which I try to share with all of you at every given chance that I have on my podcast and my Instagram stories and my feed and my emails, coming in and doing these free calls tonight. And I am trying to break this stigmatism that if I were to just send you all a meal plan, everything would be fixed. If I were to just share with you my supplement plan, everything would be fixed. If I just gave you my training plan, everything would be fixed. That is not how it works, because you are not me and I am not you. But I can tell you at 46 years old, I feel amazing. I feel amazing, and not because I'm living a perfect life, not because I don't have stress and things going on, but because I have chosen to make certain decisions where I disappoint people. I let people down. And that used to be really fucking hard for me. And I used to just give everything away to everyone who needed any part of me, my kids, my husband, my clients, my team, my whoever, my parents, my friends, my neighbors, people I didn't even know. And I was literally crumbling behind the scenes. I was so exhausted all the time. And I would just like show up with this energy. And when I finally started to be honest about that with myself first, and I began to just be honest and be like, I want to be invited, but I'm probably not coming, or I'm not able to make that thing. I can't do that. I can't be here. I canceled 2 things that I was supposed to be a part of today because I was just like, I'm tired. And a tired woman becomes a resentful woman, and a resentful woman can never show up and be the mother, the wife, the friend, the partner, the sister, the daughter that she wants to be. It's literally impossible, literally impossible. So I really want you to dive a little deeper. I also want you to know that if you want to learn about what is going on in your body on the depth of that level, and you want to have access to live coaching, you want to have a personalized team. That is what the Perimenopause and Menopause Project is. I told you tonight I was going to talk to you about this, and some of you are in the question box asking more about this here, and we will send out more specific info. But it is 8 weeks with me. It is me teaching you. And this round, I have actually brought in a pharmacist to be a very good functional pharmacist to answer a lot of different questions. We're going to talk about everything that we need to know week by week about your body. We're going to go deep into things we've touched on tonight, like digestion and liver and histamine, what it means in terms of your body composition moving forward. We're really going to dial it in terms of very specific protocols, because when you come in, so if you come in and you just do the program, you're with me live for 8 weeks, plus you get a session with either Stephanie on my team or Christine. How would you know which one you're going to work with? If you want somebody to do a full health history timeline to understand what's been going on with all of your symptoms and all of your struggles, you are going to meet with Stephanie. If you want someone who's going to dial in your nutrition, your macros, your minerals, understand from that perspective, you would book in with Christine. If you want to work with both of them, plus you want to be able to have your stool test and your hair tested and you want my eyeballs looking over your work as well too, that is the upgraded testing package. We start October 8th. I'm not bringing this back until October of 2020. We have an entire beautiful year of things that we have planned out. We work with about 40, max 50 women inside of this program. If you are on our wait list, you've already had access to be able to come in and take one of those spots. So I'm not shitting you. I don't do this. I'm not that person that goes, it's time sensitive. It's this, it's that. We are literally 50% sold out. We sell out every single round. We are very good at what we do. If you've ever come into any of my courses where you're with me for weeks on end, I will blow your mind with what you know and understand. You have access to all the information for life moving forward. You have a custom resource hub. You get access to Synced. You are getting a membership to Synced for the 8 weeks. So you have all of your workouts. You have a 10-day reset. You have meal plans. We give you all the tools that you need so you can no longer say, I don't have that thing. I don't know what to do. We eliminate that. And then what we do is also provide you the incredible humans like Stephanie and Christine on my team who actually walk you through personally understanding what it is that your body needs specifically. Because half the battle in getting to where you want to go, it's process of elimination. It's eliminating things that you don't need to focus on right now. You do not have to be worrying about and doing right now and starting to really hone in on the few things. That is the simplicity approach that we take. It is not about doing everything. It is literally impossible. You can't. How do you understand for your specific body? So all of you who, like the amount of you in here who wrote about digestion, possibly SIBO, IBS, leaky gut, food sensitivities, what we do is we're going to test your poop. You test it, you take your poop, you send it to the lab, we get the results back and we take you through all of your results. And we do it all on video and we record everything because you will never remember in a single session everything you need to know. So we build you out, we have a virtual clinic. You are built out your own portfolio. You can go back to that portfolio at any time. Let's say it is 8 years down the road and you want to go back and look at what your results were. You want to look at your protocol. You go back into that and you have that there. You're so welcome, Donna. This is what we do. So I'm going to put the link into the chat for you there. We're also going to send it out into the replay as well. I'm also going to send you all a checklist. I'm going to send you a checklist as a little thank you for coming here tonight that is going to walk you through some of the things that if I was you and I was going to my doctor and there's the link right there. You'll see there's 2 ways to join. There's payment plans. It's very accessible. We start October the 8th. If I was you and I did not have the knowledge that I have, this checklist would be the checklist that I wish that someone gave to me. Okay. The other thing I'm strongly going to encourage you all to do is if you've had previous blood work done, is to download the blood work guide when you get the replay and sit side by side with your blood work and this video of me walking you through it. If you have recent blood work and you're coming into the Perimenopause project, you're going to give us your blood work and we're going to do a full review of your blood work. And then we're going to help you understand how your blood labs, your stool, and your hair that we're going to test all connect. So Steph is our lead coach on this. She's fantastic. She has an incredible amount of training. She has also mentored under me directly. I trust her implicitly. And the same thing with Christine. You cannot get better time and attention. And these couple of months will change your life. They will literally change your life. But here's what you have to do. If you decide to register, and if you don't, you'll come back into something else. But if you are one of the women that work with us, please show up. Like, please show up. Take the schedule of classes. It's every Wednesday for 8 weeks. For 2 months, you and me are hanging out on Wednesdays, and put it in your calendar and treat it like it is the most important of your week. The most important. It is not the thing that, oh, there's too much else going on. I'm just not going to do my class. I will not let you do that. I want you there live. It's also not webinar style. It's meeting style. We can see each other. If that scares you, keep your camera off. But we go deep. And I stay on at the end all the time for continued Q&A. We have a private group this time that is the very first time we have done this on WhatsApp. You are connected to me and my team through my phone. You have a question, you are confused about something, you need support, you are having a shitty ass day with your body and hormones and don't understand what's going on. We have a walkie-talkie system now for the 2 months. You tell me where you're going to get that in a doctor's office. It's not going to happen. So this is the the Perimenopause Menopause project. I've run it 3 times before. It was only the Perimenopause project. Now we have brought in updated information and details for those of you that are also in menopause and post who still have all of the symptoms. And so any questions, you let me know. And we'd love the opportunity to be able to work with you. We're really good. We are really good at what we do, and we're very passionate about what we do as well. Okay, let me answer some questions. You are welcome. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up here. I'm going to hang with you for another 10 to 15 and answer some more questions. And yeah, oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Okay, how often should you have your hormones checked by urine? If you are in perimenopause, so your urinary test would be a Dutch hormone test that you would do. I will be totally honest with you, in later stage perimenopause and early menopause, this is the test I run the least frequently because the hormones they're really moving all over the place. I would say once a year. Once a year, I would do a comprehensive Dutch complete. If I was really concerned about things going on adrenally, I would maybe add in the saliva with that. So there's like a Dutch complete plus. But the HTMA will give us a ton of information about whether or not iron. We didn't talk about iron tonight because I'll do a whole class just on iron. But so many women who are told they have low iron actually don't have low iron. They do not have anemia. They have iron overload that is trapped at the tissue level that is contributing to the inflammation that is showing up in blood like they have low iron. And the more iron you take, the worse it becomes. And so inside the Perimenopause Menopause project, we'll be going deep on this because I'm testing your hair. We get to see everything going on with your calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, heavy metals, copper, zinc, iron, so many different cofactors. What happens if you have severe joint pain in your knees and shoulders that's limiting you to work out? So I would 100% be looking at what's going on from that inflammatory response. Very common for frozen shoulder, rotator cuff injuries, hip, knee, foot pain, plantar fasciitis, and tendinitis as a whole when estrogen is starting to go low. So talk to your practitioner about that. Bringing in some estrogen, if you're a good candidate for that and you've got some progesterone along with that, can help tremendously, but also increasing your omega-3s. Bringing in things like turmeric can help to calm that inflammation. So there's a lot that can be done. And right now, find the type of exercise that is non-impact and doesn't hurt. Yoga, Pilates, bar, swimming, things like that. Is the course only for perimenopause? It is perimenopause and menopause. And if you have an autoimmune illness, and you're in that age span as well too, then I would say yes. So we deal a lot with women who have MS, women who have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, RA, rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of different autoimmune issues going on. And if you're not sure, and it is something that feels a little bit more expansive than that, email us, hello@Jenn Pike. Let us know more about your story, and then we can help you from there. Can biotin supplementation affect hormone and thyroid blood testing results? It can. So if you're taking biotin, take it as far away from possible as when you go and get thyroid testing done. You've had 2 UTIs at 48 years old due to dryness. Is this all from perimenopause? Most likely. So when we have a reduction in estrogen, our estrogen is very lubricant in our body. And so it's not just your skin that's drying out and the vagina that's drying out, it's orifices and cells and tissue as a whole. So using vaginal estrogen can make a world of a difference. Using vaginal moisturizers can also help. And then going and talking to your provider about possibly using some hormone replacement therapy. Vaginal estrogen is not the same as using estrogen patch, estrogen gel, systemic estrogen. It is literally helping to soothe, coat, and heal the tissue so that you don't have the friction from intercourse or any type of penetration. That then when you have the friction and you have the tearing, now you are very vulnerable for bacteria, whether it's seminal fluid, it's from condoms, it's from a menstrual cup, if it's from anything that is going up inside the vagina, that bacteria becomes more prevalent. And now this is what will lead to urinary tract infections, bacterial vaginosis, yeast infections. Very common, not enjoyable, and not necessary. The other thing I would say, if you're getting a lot of UTIs, start to use something called D-mannose. I'll write it in the chat here. Ladies, keep this sucker on hand. At the first feeling of a UTI coming on, start to take a few doses of D-mannose. It can make a world of a difference. What about those with endometriosis? Endometriosis was one of Stephanie's specialties. So again, if you are in the perimenopause, menopause period of time, but you also have endometriosis, adenomyosis, you have suffered from uterine fibroids and cyst, you're in very good hands because Steph is fantastic at helping support this. 63 with no period for almost 10 years. I'm on HRT and taking progesterone. I mean, yes, the program would benefit you. My greater question to ask your provider is, why are you taking progesterone only and not any estrogen when you have been a decade without having your period? For that. Full hysterectomy, yes. When you've had a full hysterectomy, so you've had ovaries, fallopian tubes, and uterus completely gone, so you were put into surgical menopause, it does not mean that your body is still not going to go signs and symptoms. In fact, you were thrusted into menopause. And there is also something to be said for that, because your body, some people would be like, oh, it's great, you went over all of the symptoms of perimenopause, but there's a reason we're meant to go through transitions and phases and stages. So yes, Jody, if you've had a full hysterectomy, we can help you with that as well. Let me come in this one. If your doctor wants you to take HRT, they just want me to take the basic dose and does not seem to understand it, who can you work with on figuring out if HRT is working for you? Do you think bioidenticals are better? Okay, so first part of this, if my doctor didn't understand HRT and couldn't answer any of my questions about HRT, I would not be taking a prescription from said doctor. I would be finding another doctor who specializes in that. So I'd be asking local friends, I'd be looking online, I'd be looking for maybe a naturopath who has prescription ability, because not all naturopaths do. So a lot of people think NDs, all NDs know HRT. They do not. They would have had to have continuing education. And so you can also go onto sites like the Menopause Society, and they'll have a registry of all the different provinces, states where you live, and they'll have some different names on there that have gone through that training. Not to say the Menopause Society is the pinnacle of training, but let's just say it's better than if your doctor went to just regular medical school where they had zero training on menopause and perimenopause. It would be a step up for that. Okay, let me scroll back up here. Have some labs in stool and hair from before. Can I use those? So it would depend how long ago it was. Typically for stool, we would want to see something that was in the last 6 to like 10 months. And for hair, something probably in that same range. What you could do is, if you were wanting to sign up for the program on its own and you have your one single session with Steph, you could she can't do a full lab review on all 3 of those tests in an hour plus do a proper intake. So I would say you could pick one of those and do that. But if it's been a while longer, then we would want to run completely fresh labs. How can I lower my cortisol? I'm on HRT, all 3 of them. So you're on progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. You're still waking in the middle of the night and you're gaining weight even though you're not eating a lot. I work in the heat outside in Texas without AC for 4 to 5 hours. What can I do? The goal is not to lower cortisol. The goal is to because listen, without enough cortisol, things are not going to go well either. It's like Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Okay, we want to have enough that the body is having an appropriate response. The fact that your body is still responding with enough cortisol production is good. But what I want to know is, how do you know that you have high cortisol to lower? Waking up at 3 in the morning is not the only reason, right? Like it's not only high cortisol that's waking you at 3. It could be unstable blood sugar. So if you are not eating a lot, that's my first red flag. If you are working outside in the heat and are dehydrated, that's another red flag. So there could be other stressors happening within your body in your current situation that are contributing to you waking at 3. I would not want to give you something to go and lower your cortisol without knowing. And now you've got a thyroid issue you're bringing up in this as well too. So again, if we're testing cortisol through blood, and it's only one marker, and that was the morning marker, you have to understand more. We can't just take one moment in time and create an entire protocol or prescription or remedies off of that. So I would recommend that if your doctor is like very Western and you're not getting a lot of time with them and you can't explore things more functionally, that you look into being able to do that. And if you were put on thyroid medication, wait to see how you feel. Because if your thyroid was becoming more underactive, looking at that whole picture, thyroid is like, I teach master classes on the thyroid because looking at something like our TSH, okay, which is if your TSH was climbing high, typically medical doctor, it's going to be like above, 3, 4. We can't just look at TSH. That's a signaling mechanism. It means that the brain is trying to send more signaling to the thyroid because the thyroid is actually getting sluggish. It's really understanding, like a lot of people are given purely T4 when they need a combination. You're in the US. If I were you, I would start to follow McCall McPherson because she is based out of the States and thyroid is like pretty much all she does. And her clinics, that's all they do. So I think you maybe just want to kind of get like a second opinion and have somebody who can help you understand the full factor. But thyroid would be another reason you could be waking in the middle of the night. So you might just need the thyroid to get more regulated, be better supported, and then your stress response will start to modulate. Okay. Okay, let me go up here into the other one. What time on Wednesdays? Same time, 4:30 p.m. PST on Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. EST. Everything is recorded. It goes into your hub. It's like you literally have your own little school system that is all built in there for you. You're so welcome. Yes, there's a full recording that's coming out. Can you take vaginal estrogen and also take HRT? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can. Vaginal estrogen, so frequent urination. So the other thing I'd recommend, and I don't know your name because it just says iPhone, is that if you have never worked with a pelvic floor physiotherapist, that can help you understand a lot about your landscape. But as the tissue gets thinner and as our tendons and ligaments also become weaker because of that lowering estrogen, this can impact, and now we have to pee more often. Also, if you have uterine prolapse, because you have to remember that our cervix, our bladder, and our bowels all share, like they're roommates with one another. And so where we have issues in one area, okay, we're going to have issues in another. So this can also be another piece of when we have frequent urination, we have issues going on with the bowels. We also maybe have pain with intercourse. We can insert a tampon or a cup anymore without it falling out. We can feel that dissension happening. Using vaginal estrogen can really help with that and make a big, big difference. Dutch test for someone who's postmenopausal wouldn't be my first test. I can't say 100% yes or no because I would need to know what's going on. But I would say postmenopausal, to me, the most valuable tests are going to be a fully comprehensive blood lab where we're looking at everything, running stool testing, and then I'm going to decide from there. Depending on the symptoms, I may say, let's test hair before we do Dutch. An HTMA test for your hair is also cheaper. It's about half the cost of a Dutch test. So if I have a woman that's postmenopausal, I already know that her sex hormones are going to be low because she's postmenopausal and they should be low. What I might be looking for in a Dutch test is what's going on with her adrenals, how much cortisol she's producing, how she regulates it. And maybe then I can look at her, her androgenic activity. I may want to look at her detoxification pathways and some neurotransmitters, but we can also see that in other things. So my answer would be it depends on what's going on, but if I had to pick, it wouldn't be the first one if you were postmenopausal. I'd rather look at your poo and understand what's going on with your gut. Because if we heal your gut, that gut axis travels up to the brain axis, supports the skin, supports all the mechanisms. What you have to remember, ladies, is if you're not able to break down, digest, absorb, and assimilate what you are consuming, where all the minerals and the micronutrition lives, everything your cells are waiting for, everything that mitochondrial health and metabolic health is waiting for, the rest of it doesn't really matter. So postmenopausally, why am I going to go and spend $500 on testing your hormones when we know that your hormones have shifted? What else can we support in your body? Postmenopausally, I am far more concerned with what's going on with your metabolic health, your cardiovascular health, your brain health, and working through that lens, and then looking at how do we optimize what's going on with your hormones. And if you are on hormone replacement therapy, that could be a reason that you are measuring with the Dutch, because it's going to help you understand how well your body is dealing with or utilizing the hormones you are taking. So I hope that answers that one for you. Oh, you are very welcome. Any other questions, ladies? Would I suggest taking ashwagandha and thyroid medication? I would say because you're new to taking thyroid medication, just start with the thyroid medication. do the thyroid medication for a couple of months. Oftentimes when you get started on it, it's a formula of titration, which means the amount you start on most likely won't be the amount that you stay on. You have to see how you feel. So give it a couple of months. The L-theanine is totally fine. I would hold off on adding the ashwagandha until you know how you are responding to the thyroid medication itself. For that, you're coming to my house on Saturday. I'm hosting an in-person event at my house on Saturday. Rosa, I will see you on Saturday. That's amazing. You're on the lowest dose. Okay, I would still, Nermina, I would just wait to see how your body feels on that. Because if you start to throw a bunch of things in at the same time, it's so hard to know, well, was it this? Was it this? Was it this? Should I be concerned that after going months, almost a year without getting a period, now I'm getting short periods more frequently? I would definitely investigate it. I would want to look and understand, well, what was going on at the time that you weren't getting periods? Are these true periods that are showing up, or are you getting like frequent spotting? Because that could be something else that you would want to investigate. We'd want to make sure everything was healthy within the cervix and within the uterine lining. So, I would go to your doctor. If you haven't had a PAP in some time, I would have an internal done, and I would have a swab done to understand, is there anything going on there that I need to pay attention to? You are very welcome. Magnesium is totally fine to use if you're on thyroid medication. How do you know if you should be on HRT? Well, it's a bigger conversation to have, but if you have a lot of the symptoms where you've got the brain fog, you're not sleeping, your mood is all over the place, you are noticing that you are far more symptomatic than you ever have been, and it is all in relation to as you have gotten into, your late 30s into your 40s, you're noticing some of those like microcycle changes happening. It's probably a time to consider it, but through a conversation with a practitioner. I started on progesterone about not quite 2 years ago. So I guess I was like 44. I started because, and again, like I've obviously been taking really good care of my body in a literal sense. I also, run a very busy business, and my life's lesson is always about doing less better. And I get excited and then I say yes to too much. And then I've got to remember the goal is to do less better, Jen. Embrace simplicity, right? But for me, the reason why I started was I was noticing some sleep disruption. I was noticing my period was shortening. And when I was getting my period, I was having some spotting at the beginning that I never used to have before. I was starting to show up with some signs and symptoms of progesterone for that. So, but I'm not on any estrogen yet. I don't have any of the symptoms where like cognitively, body temperature wise, vaginally, any of those things where I feel like I need to be on estrogen yet. I'm not opposed to it, but it doesn't feel like that time is right now. I do have a vaginal moisturizer that is hyaluronic acid based from a company called Iris. I'll put them in here. They're Toronto based. They're fantastic. And I do believe that if you're interested in moisturizing your skin, your vaginal tissue is also skin. We don't want her to dry up. We don't want her to dry up. We want to take care of her so she stays happy and not frictiony and bleeding and with a UTI. So it is one of those things, and spending time, like, don't let yourself be feeling like you're being like bullied or pressured by the, menopause gangs online. Like every woman has to go on HRT. Maybe I would agree that we all need to have supported bodies and adrenals and nervous systems moving forward, because those hormones play a massive role beyond just our ovaries, but we need to understand more about what each woman is going through. Okay, might be general, but blood clots during a menstrual cycle, normal through perimenopause. I mean, blood clots in and of themselves are normal. It's just larger pieces of the endometrial lining. Again, ladies, you have to remember when you bleed, you're shedding an organ. Your uterus is an organ and you're shedding it when you have your period. What you would want to pay attention to is if you're having chunks, you are having massive clots, this is new, this is not your norm, then I would recommend that you talk to somebody about that. Is it normal to have no cramping over a decade and then start again along with breast tenderness? Very. And that is because what I talked about at the very beginning, which is that we often have estrogen that is sitting higher in relation to progesterone, and that'll contribute to breast tenderness and to cramping. Also, the cramping, what you have to realize is that for the uterus to fully shed that uterine lining, it has to contract. There's a peristalsis that happens in order to slough off the lining of the uterus. And so if that is getting more uncomfortable as time is going on, those are prostaglandins and cytokines, inflammatory nerves in the body, nerve triggers that are happening that are increasing the discomfort. There's a lot of things you can do. Evening primrose oil is beautiful to support that. St. Francis Herb Farm, which is based out of Canada, if you go onto their website, they have cramp bark that is wonderful for that. Castor oil packs are really good. And then if it persists and none of those things help, then it's looking at, do I need some other level of support? You are so welcome. Yeah, we're going to finish up here in 2 minutes. Oh, you're so welcome, Diana. The wild yam cream. I find it can be helpful for women who are like early stage, but not once you are like in the thick of perimenopause, right? Like I would say like my brain, not my brain, my mood is much more in perimenopause than my body is. My mood and my adrenals are like, we live here now. The rest not so much. So you just got to really understand like kind of what phase are you at within that. Dr. Carrie Jones has some really good posts on that online about like trying to understand the phases you're in. We go really deep into this in week 1 of the Perimenopause Menopause project that can really help you distill that down. Francine, I am sorry. Well, my friends, it's because you're on that roller coaster right now. And it doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden going to go back to having regular periods right now. This could be, your last period. You may go again a whole nother period of time. There's a lot of different factors, right? You have to remember that your brain that's secreting your follicular stimulating hormone that is communicating down below to the ovaries, like there's a lot of miswiring and firing that's happening coming into menopause because your body is like, excuse me, we are talking to you down there below. Why are you not doing the thing that you've been doing for the last 30, 40 years? Like everybody up on your feet and make it happen. And the ovaries and the uterus are like, excuse you, like I'm retired now. I don't do that anymore. And so you can have these periods of time where it's like the last hurrah. There's enough estrogen that has built up over time. There's enough contributing factors that have created enough of a uterine lining, and then you have a drop of the enough hormones, and that signals for the lining to shed. So yeah. Yeah, it's bedtime. It's going to be bedtime here for me too. I'm still on Ontario time. You're welcome. Okay, this is going to be my last one from Stephanie. And then we're going to go. How do you test for adrenal fatigue? It's not really a test. It is a sign and cluster of symptoms. We can look at saliva that can help us better understand, and we can look in your hair. If your sodium and potassium are on the floor, we know we have an adrenal thyroid issue. If you've been told you have a thyroid issue, you 100% have an adrenal issue. So it's less about having the label, more about having the understanding of what your symptoms mean. So I hope that makes sense. I want to say thank you for staying on for this lengthy period of time. And I'm going to answer this last one. If you don't want to use HRT, what can you use instead? Lifestyle. Lifestyle, sleep, herbs and supplements that are individualized to you. So I would still work with someone on this, and you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You've got to feel comfortable and confident in the decisions that you're making for yourself. But it's very difficult to feel like you're making informed decisions if you don't have information for the informed decision. And this is where the education piece is so important. So thank you all, ladies. I hope to be working with many of you over the next 8 weeks, starting October 8th. And as I said, any questions, please let us know. Have a beautiful rest of your night, everyone. Take care.